His strength has become stronger again. The same thought flashed through everyone's minds, causing shock to appear on their faces. The breath that Roy exudes at this moment is far beyond their imagination. But when they saw Roy's horrible face like a devil in person, they suddenly felt a sour emotion in their hearts. This kind of trick to break through the limits of the body, it is estimated that he is also suffering from other people's unimaginable pain. The skin on top and bottom of the body showed a fiery red burnt by flames, and the raised veins and blood vessels could even clearly see the rush of blood inside. It is hard to imagine how terrible the body of Roy is enduring at this moment. Here we go. Before everyone could react, Roy's hoarse and dry voice came out. Then boom. As the earth suddenly exploded into a wave, a shockingly huge hole appeared at his feet, and his figure was wrapped in a violent blue airwave and rushed out like a tiger. Hurry up. At this time, the ghost spider's eyes dazzled, and he whispered, "Protect Roy's back." The others were stunned, and then quickly realized what Roy meant in the words just now. So they immediately followed with their weapons. Indifferent and crazy eyes. The surging and crazy killing intent, the powerful fist swept through the flames of war and gunpowder, and broke into the crowd of pirates in the blink of an eye. Oncoming, he is a bald pirate with a stature like a little giant. The huge body, more than 3 meters high, stood there like a hill in the crowd. In his hand was waving a half-human black hammer. Every time an attack falls, it seems to crush the earth into fragments, smashing deep pits one after another. Marine, who was trying to double team, had at least a dozen people who had not been able to withstand his terrifying force, and it was abruptly blasted into meat sauce. Ha 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 ha. You poor Marines are really useless. The bald pirate once again slammed a young Marine in front of him into half of his body. The flesh and blood flew in front of him, covering his naked upper body, but it made him smile proudly. At this time, when the blood rains all over the sky, a dazzling blue light continuously magnified in front of him at an astonishing speed. Just when he was stunned, he saw a pair of indifferent, murderous eyes. Go away. Marine kid. This pirate really deserves to be the elite of the flying pirate group, and the tough guy who has been mixed up in New World. The response is also extremely fast. The sledgehammer in his hand was swung at Roy's head vigorously. As you can imagine, if this hammer hits, Roy's mind will explode like a watermelon in an instant. At this moment, Roy suddenly smiled coldly. The figure moving quickly in midair gently touched the void. Ripples in the air under the feet, in the shocking eyes of countless people, the figure floated like catkins to avoid the deadly hammer. Pretty. The Marine Vice Admiral naturally noticed the astonishing situation here, and couldn't help but burst out in surprise. This is the fusion technique of shaving and paper arts. Certainly, what this Marine Vice Admiral didn't know was, after Roy opened the injury gate of the 4th gate of the 8 inner gates, his body's explosive power and speed have been able to move quickly and stay in the air for a short period of time. But none of this matters anymore, because Roy's fist has been blasted out like a meteor. Boom. Snapped. The head of that bald pirate suddenly exploded. The rain of blood flew up and down, and it seemed so shocking in the chaotic battlefield. It's done. Roy made a hit, and his figure fell to the ground, his face panting slightly. The strength of this pirate has at least reached the level of a general supernova. If it hadn't been for him to fight for a long time and consume a lot of physical strength, coupled with Roy's sudden attack in the chaotic battlefield, he would not be able to kill him in a single shot so easily. This is so. Roy also showed his full strength, and his breath was a little unstable. But this way, the pirates around were instantly irritated, and they doubled towards Roy like a tide. With weapons in their hands, they cut from Roy's left, right and back. Kang. Kang. Clang. Several figures suddenly appeared behind Roy, blocking the attack of the pirates. Can you guys sneak attack on our boss? On the left, Smoker, who was full of white smoke, said solemnly with 10 hands. Roy, you are really a lunatic, but I like it. On the right, the ghost spider who held a saber to block a pirate with both hands sneered. Behind, the mole holding a huge sword smiled and said, We all understand. Go ahead, don't look back, leave your life to us. You can't die without our permission. At the same time, the other freshmen also immediately surrounded Roy with an extremely standard defensive camp, steadily protecting Roy at the center. Their looks are extremely determined and full of determination. At this moment, this group of teenagers clenched their sabers tightly. His eyes glowed with admiration and fanaticism. Looking at the thin back that was boiling with blue air, his eyes were reddish. Because they all understood the brave determination and consciousness contained in Roy's phrase, protect him. Yes, Roy wanted to treat himself as a sharp blade, rushing to the front and leading them to fight. With their combat power, even if they have more determination and military literacy than the pirates, they can face such a huge disparity in numbers and combat power. It is impossible for this group of new students to be under the siege of countless pirates. Survive. There is only one method, that's a breakthrough. Constantly break through and attack. With Roy as the blade of the combat camp, one by one, the small bosses of the flying pirates were killed, and the morale of the pirates was completely defeated, so that their survival probability could be improved. Among all the Marines here, only Roy, who opened the 4th gate of the 8 inner gates, has this ability to kill. But there is one prerequisite: in the process of such crazy attacks and killings, there will be extremely obvious gaps and flaws behind him. Just like killing the little giant pirate just now, Roy needs his comrades and partners to cover him after a full blow. This is the battlefield, it's not a fight alone. No matter how fast the 8 inner gates is, it is impossible to remain unscathed under the encirclement and attack of numerous pirates. Unless Roy Ishin wants to go. This is also the reason why other military academies are willing to follow Roy to the end. He can go, with the speed and explosive power he had just now. He can completely abandon the cadets here, make a bloody escape by yourself. But he didn't. If you want to protect me, then you have to work hard. Roy heard the people's resolute voice, and a wanton smile came up at the corner of his mouth. When he said that, he took a deep breath, and his figure once again turned into azure light to kill another pirate team leader 10 meters away. The others smiled, keeping the defensive camp to keep up quickly. But, in fact, what they don't know now is, following in the footsteps of that unhesitating young figure, it has completely become their greatest glory and journey in their future military careers. There is only one thought in their hearts now. Follow his steps. As long as you follow him, we can win. Kill. For justice. The cruel, fierce battle began again. With the passage of time, the number of corpses on the battlefield of the military academy continued to increase, and the bloodstains everywhere made this supposedly peaceful and harmonious educational sacred land completely turning into a human hell. There are screams of pirates and marines everywhere. Traces of blood and fire filled every corner of his sight. With Roy leading the military academy students to participate in the war, Marines' decline has been eased to a certain extent. Are the cadets weak? To be honest, their combat power is not weak. What they receive is the best military education and military training on this sea. Each of them is a talented penultimate top student. The most important is, in the mechanism of military school training. The camps and formations of various organizations finally fully bloomed with boundless brilliance at this moment. The reason why they look weak, just because they have never experienced a decent war, have never seen such a tragic picture in front of them. But now it's different, because of the appearance of that boy. Courage and hope rekindled in their hearts, a vigorous fighting spirit also appeared in his eyes. And as they entered the war and gradually adapted to the cruelty and rhythm of this war, their cooperation became more and more fascinating, and the master of their own strength and abilities also improved and became proficient at an astonishing speed. Threshold block. A large black steel fence was suddenly lifted up among the pirates, and several oncoming pirates were completely imprisoned in it. Hina intertwined her hands in a gesture, her eyes cold. Leave it to me next. A deep voice sounded. Then a tall figure flashed out suddenly, next moment. The ghost spider's figure appeared in front of the several pirates like a ghost, and in the latter's horrified gaze, the two swords cut a few cold lights. Laugh. The blood rain is flying. On the other side. The billowing white smoke exploded a column of air in the battlefield, restraining a dozen pirates in midair. Smoker's figure was looming in the white smoke, with 10 hands in his hand, and hit the pirate's head fiercely. The pirate let out a muffled grunt, but he didn't make a sound anymore. Mole also wielded the huge sword in his hand, under the cover of other classmates, continuously harvesting the pirates bound by the smoke. The educational achievements of the military academy have turned into a nearly perfect and excellent cooperation at this moment. Keep up. Protect Roy. After solving a lot of pirates who came in, Smoker and others roared in unison. This moment, this group of freshmen from the Marine Academy finally adapted to the rhythm of this war, blooming in this chaotic battlefield that belongs to their genius style. Yes, their talents may not be as good as the three monsters Akainu Kizaru and Aokiji, but they are still unattainable geniuses in the eyes of countless ordinary people. And their leader Roy, under the cover of this group of geniuses, broke out an unprecedented edge. 1, 2, 3. In just a few minutes, more than 5 captains of the Flying Pirate Squadron died in his hands on the battlefield of this military academy. The organization of the Flying Pirate Group is quite similar to that of the Whitebeard Pirate Group, except that the number of people far exceeds that of the Whitebeard Pirate Group. The leader of the pirate group is naturally the legendary large pirate Golden Lion Shiki with the title of Flying Admiral. And under the Admiral, there are a total of 28 New World pirates with an average bounty of more than 500 million Baileys. After that, is the backbone of the Flying Pirates. A total of 68 team captains with a bounty of more than 100 million Baileys. And now, just in this small military academy area, a full 5 team captains were lost. This kind of casualties, even a large-scale flying pirate group can't afford it. The Captain Gerald, who was responsible for leading the 6 team captains and thousands of pirates to capture the Marine Military Academy area, had his eyes full of fire, his face was blue, and the veins on his forehead were violent, and he was extremely angry to ultimate. Following this trend, even if you successfully complete the task of capturing the Naval Headquarters Military Academy, it is estimated that you will be directly executed by the angry Lord Golden Lion in the future. That man with violent personality, violent methods, and moody, doesn't care if you are his captain. It's really a group of little ghosts who do not live or die. Gerald burst out in angry roar, bulging his muscles just about to kill Roy, but unexpectedly a brutal figure covered in blood appeared in front of him, abruptly intercepting him. Your opponent is me. It's the Vice Admiral from the headquarters. His face was covered with terrifying blood, and he could no longer tell whether it was his own blood or the blood of a pirate. On his body, the position of the ribs was completely sunken into an extremely exaggerated arc, and the gurgling blood of the general's uniform was dyed red. Other parts of the body were also covered with various wounds, and the blood flow continued. But he still stood trembling, holding the broken saber in his hand, and staring resolutely at Gerald in front of him. Gerald raised his eyebrows, only amused in his angry eyes. You? Why are you? Vice Admiral's face was crazy, his eyes widened, veins violently on his trembling arms, and he pressed the broken saber firmly. Just because first am Marine. Gerald was stunned, and immediately burst into a mocking laugh. Gia ha ha ha. Do not make jokes. If you are not injured, you may still be qualified to say such big things to Lousy. But now, you who are about to die, how can you stop Lousy from killing all the damn little ghosts? The voice hadn't completely fallen off, and Gerald's figure disappeared from the place in a flash. So fast. It surpasses the speed that human beings can imagine. This guy still hides his strength. Next moment, Roy and a group of freshmen from the military academy suddenly opened their eyes. A shadowy shadow appeared above their heads. It is Gerald. A huge steel axe suddenly appeared in his hand, as if it was about to split a mountain range. A touch of despair quickly caught the hearts of Roy and others. This kind of speed and power cannot be stopped at all. Laugh. The sound of torn flesh and blood rang in front of him, but the unexpected horror pain did not come. Suddenly, their pupils shrank. I saw a tall blood-stained figure in front of them without knowing when. The broken knife, with a clanging sound, turned into starlight fragments scattered in the sky. All of them could only see a generous blood-colored back, slowly falling down in front of them. The bloody cloak of justice, slowly scattered on the ground, looked extraordinarily heavy. Master Vice Admiral. There was a roar of grief from a freshman. It was the Vice Admiral of the head office. At the crucial moment, he helped them block the axe. Tisk tusk, it's a touching picture. Gerald pulled out the axe that had ripped Vice Admiral's body with one hand, bringing out a large swath of blood in the air, and grinning grinningly. The stupid guy gave up his life in order to protect a group of little ghosts. Just because you are Marine? You can't protect anyone. You can't even save yourself. Gia ha ha ha. He looked at Marine Vice Admiral, who was lying in a pool of blood, with a scornful face, and moved his fierce gaze to Roy and others. Don't worry, you will be like him soon. Roy can't hear Gerald's grinning in their ears. Can't hear anything. Everything in front of me seemed to become blurred at this moment. In the eyes, only the heavy figure of Vice Admiral falling slowly. There is also the cloak of justice that was gradually destroyed by the flames of war. They had never seen such a shocking scene, and had never seen such a person with their own eyes. It turns out that there are people in this world who can give their lives willingly for other people. The figure who was still alive fighting in front of you a second ago. The next moment it became a hot corpse that fell to the ground. What is justice? Perhaps many people have different answers in their hearts. Including Roy, these freshmen who have just entered the military camp. They all felt very strange and distant to these two simple words. Even if it is really facing this cruel war, they simply don't want to die here, they just want to live. But precisely because of this desire to live, only then did the scene in front of me become extremely real and hot. I want to live, doesn't this vice admiral from the head office want to? Presumably he also has his own dreams and ambitions that have not yet been realized, right? He must also have his cherished family and friends who want to meet again and give them a warm hug again, right? But at this moment of life-threatening, between my own possessions and the lives of the new generations, he chose the latter without hesitation. Is this a soldier? Is this justice? This thought suddenly appeared in each of them, and their hearts were empty, as if an exquisite porcelain bowl had been broken. Seeing Roy, they froze in place like statues, their expressions were pale as if they were frightened and stupefied. Gerald's face couldn't help but a frantic grin appeared, and he mocked. Look. It is because of you group of useless and weak little ghosts, your vice admiral talent will be cut in half by lousy. Cadet? The cradle of justice? Marine's hope? Gia ha ha ha. It's just a bunch of innocent kids who are inferior to shit. The justice you keep talking about is nothing but a backward concept that should have been eliminated by the world long ago. Only the strong are qualified to conclude all this. Today, let lousy personally kill all of your so-called hope of justice, all without leaving a place, ha ha ha. With that said, Gerald suddenly raised the giant axe in his hand and slashed towards Roy and the others. The explosive sound of the air completely blasted in front of him, and the strong wind blowing on his face made people's cheeks hurt. Facing the New World big pirates with a bounty of more than 500 million Baileys, the cadets who don't even have a master in hockey, how can they react? The surrounding Marines' eyes were red and tried to stop them, but more pirates stopped them. Everything seems to be too late. Life is about to end. Kang. A clear and incomparable hum of gold and iron suddenly exploded, and the dazzling sparks rose brightly, causing all the military academies to be stunned. Gerald was also taken aback. One arm, a thick and strong hand with black and bright color, as strong as steel. Squeeze his great axe that is wrapped around armament hockey tightly. Don't move. Gerald raised his head subconsciously, his pupils contracted tightly into thin needles, and unimaginable panic surged in his heart. A large white cloak, a burly body like a mountain. Short purple hair fluttering in the wind. This man. Black Arm Zephyr. Gerald let out a terrified scream. Ms. Zephyr. It's Teacher Zephyr, he came. The Marines burst into cheers of ecstasy, and the morale that had fallen to the bottom instantly skyrocketed. Sorry. I met two guys who didn't know how to live or die and got in the way. I wasted a lot of time for the old man. Zephyr's voice revealed a hoarseness and lowness that was suppressed to ultimate, and the other hand was slowly released, and the two corpses fell to the ground. Looking at the two corpses, Geraldton felt her scalp numb and frightened. That was the same as him. The squad-level captains in the Flying Pirates Regiment were all big pirates who offered a bounty of more than 500 million Baileys. But now, these two guys whose strength is equal to their own, have turned into two limp corpses. The bones all over their bodies were all shattered alive. How can this be? Black Arm, Zephyr, isn't it called, not kill? The captain of the 7th Division of the Flying Pirates, Gerald, the Great Axe, you were right. Only the strong are qualified to determine all of this. Then, the old man tells you, what makes Marine known as justice? Snapped. Zephyr's voice fell, and the great axe entwining hockey was suddenly crushed by his big hand. Snapped. The crisp voice shattered like a mirror, shining like stars in the wagging flames of war and flames. At the same time, it also illuminates Gerald's face that has become pale due to excessive panic. It is hard to imagine that a face that was grinning unscrupulously 5 seconds ago would show such an ugly and unbearable expression at this moment. At this moment, everyone was staring at the purple-haired figure in a daze, with shocking emotions pouring out of their hearts. This is Zephyr, Black Arm Zephyr, the Marine hero who used to chase two enchanting geniuses like Garp and Sengoku in the Roger era, and match. True justice is not something that you, a rubbish pirate who only knows about plundering and destroying, can understand. So the old man still tells you in a way that you can understand. Zephyr raised his head suddenly. Gerald was stunned at once, and deep trembling and fear flashed through the constricted pupils. What a pair of horrible eyes. This kind of domineering, squinting eyes, he has only seen his captain, the legendary great pirate Golden Lion known as the Flying Admiral, in his entire life. Back then, I broke into the New World and arrogantly tried to challenge the great pirates such as Golden Lion, Whitebeard and Roger. At the moment he faced Golden Lion's eyes, he immediately lost everything. The courage to confront became the latter's subordinate. And now, he saw this look again. Can't help but. His whole body shuddered subconsciously. Boom. Before he could react, he felt an unmatched force surge from his throat. The big rough hand that wrapped the powerful Haki had already gripped his throat like iron tongs. The reason why we Marine can call it positive. From your pirate's point of view, it's not that we really guard the peace of this world. It's because of the strength of our Marine, we can determine who can represent justice in this sea. The old man explained that. Can you understand? Zephyr's voice sounded low and hoarse, and anyone could see the boundless anger in his heart. Quiet, deathly silence. As Zephyr's voice fell, no one dared to move. The pirates who were originally arrogant and cruel were all blankly stunned. They didn't even have the courage to escape. This is the momentum of the Black Arm Zephyr. All the Marines, including the freshmen from the military academy, looked at the generous back with the word, justice, flying behind them with eyes full of admiration, and their hearts were full of enthusiasm. This is their teacher. This is the highest combat power of naval headquarters. Gerald nodded stiffly. As Zephyr's hands gradually tightened, his face continued to change, from pale to red, and finally showed a terrible purple-blue color. Very good. Zephyr sneered coldly. You can't kill me. Gerald's voice came out of his throat with difficulty. Every word seemed to consume his life's strength. His eyes, which were full of crazy killing intent, were already gloomy, with despair and begging for mercy written all over them. You claim to. Don't kill. Please. Let me go. Zephyr looked at him quietly, looking at the face that seemed to be sad because of begging for mercy. Suddenly laughed. Let you go. If the old man let you go, who will be responsible for Marines' enemies who died in this battle? The old man claims to be, not to kill, but this is no longer as simple as a war. He raised his eyes and looked, but his eyes gradually became red. His students all died on this land. Died in this place known as the Cradle of Justice. From under his feet, all the way to the end of the eye, there were terrible Marine corpses. This is no longer justice, distance. There were bursts of earth-shaking screams. That is the front harbor direction of Naval Headquarters Marineford. The cruelest and most tragic war is being staged there. The elite of Naval Headquarters, the main force of the flying pirate group, has completely broken out frontal conflict. From the moment you dare to break into the headquarters, you are doomed to perish. Zephyr said hoarsely. At least, he glanced at Gerald again coldly. Today the old man is going to break the precept. Have fun. Next moment, his big hand is outrageously forced. No. Gerald let out a scream of exhaustion, but it continued but stopped abruptly in an instant. Snapped. The neck broke like a water pipe. A bloody human head flew straight under the impact of the burst of plasma. Blood, all over the sky. The flying pirate's great axe, Gerald died. In this way, without fighting back, under Zephyr's domineering power, he was completely dead. And with the Admiral-class combat power like Zephyr joining the battlefield in the death of the leader Gerald, many pirates on the military academy battlefield were completely blown up and lost the courage to continue fighting. Marine fought back fiercely with rage and madness, but within a few minutes, all of them were dealt with. On the battlefield, what you see are all the broken limbs that have fallen to the ground in a mess. The dense blood mist lingered in the air, mixed with the smell of gunpowder and war, and remained for a long time. All the Marines who were present stood in sullen and sad expressions. Standing in this tragic ruin, standing beside the bodies of their comrades in arms. He clenched his teeth and lowered his head. They won. But they still paid an extremely heavy price. The eye sockets of the new students are reddish, and their fists are clenched very tightly. Zephyr. Teacher. At this moment, an extremely weak and silky voice suddenly echoed slowly on the deadly battlefield. Zephyr, who was panting slightly, was stunned. The other Marines stiffened suddenly and looked in the direction of the sound in disbelief. In a pool of crimson blood, a burly figure lay in it. His chest seemed to have been cut open with some kind of sharp weapon, and a shocking huge bloodstain lay across it. The flesh and blood turned over the blurry, and even the dense white bones on the edge of the chest cavity could be seen faintly. The emotions in Zephyr's heart suddenly surged, and it was difficult to control. There was a slight tremor in those big hands that could crush the giant axe wrapped around armament Haki with a single blow. That person, This time Naval Headquarters sent to support Vice Admiral, the headquarters of the Military Academy battlefield. He is still alive. He is also his own student. The silence on the battlefield became clearer and richer, and even everyone could hear Zephyr's rapid heartbeat and his heavy breathing. Zephyr's eye sockets were slightly red, and he subconsciously stepped forward. At the same time, the military academies also raised their feet and walked heavily towards the headquarters Vice Admiral. The other Marine soldiers watched the scene in front of them in tears, and some even made a choking sound. Gradually, everyone cried silently. Everyone was silent, afraid to breathe loudly, and even more afraid to speak. It was as if he was afraid to disturb the Vice Admiral guy who was about to fall asleep. Finally, Zephyr and the freshmen from the military academy all came to the Marine Vice Admiral. When they really saw the tragic wound, the sadness in their hearts became more and more intense. Anyone can know that this courageous and fearless Vice Admiral who gave his life has come to the end of his life. Ms. Zephyr, I didn't embarrass you. The Vice Admiral's appearance was very ordinary, with a square face and dark skin. If he hadn't been wearing a military uniform representing Vice Admiral's authority, anyone in the crowd would subconsciously think that he was just a civilian farmer. His blood-stained face squeezed out a smile with difficulty, and looked at Zephyr, his most respected teacher and most admired man in his life. The fall of this sentence made Zephyr uncontrollable immediately, and the old man nodded in tears. You have always been the pride of the old man, he said with red eyes, without concealing the pride in his heart. When Vice Admiral heard Zephyr's words, his smile became brighter and more cheerful, but the gurgling scarlet blood was constantly flowing from the corner of his mouth. It's great. I didn't shame you. I successfully saved your student. The Vice Admiral turned his head stiffly, and slowly moved his gaze to the choking freshman, and finally his gaze fell on Roy. He nodded, opened his mouth, and tried to say something. The pale and bloodless lips trembled slightly. But he was too tired, I can't say a word. The heavy eyelids gradually fall, he slowly closed his eyes. Then, heartbeat stopped. The picture was finally fixed on his ordinary, blood-stained, soft smiling face. He seemed very satisfied with the result. No regrets left. Everyone fell into a deep silence, as if every heart had fallen into an endless abyss and darkness. The freshmen sadly took off their military caps, bowed their heads, and said nothing. You are Marines' hope for the future, and you absolutely cannot die here. In their minds, they still clearly remembered what Vice Admiral said to them. Suddenly, they feel, on my shoulders. It's heavy. It's weird. Obviously there is nothing on his shoulders. Rumble. In the distance, on the horizon, the sound of violent artillery fire continued, as if deafening. But throughout the military academy, but it was so quiet that the needle fell. Everyone can't seem to hear the screams and explosions of the distant battlefield. He lowered his head in silence, for nothing else. Perhaps these people present just want to take a few seconds from this tragic and magnificent war, and unanimously pay the highest respect to this ordinary but great Marine Vice Admiral. Looking at that ordinary dark face and the soft smile that freezes on his face, the picture in front of me seems to have been forgotten there, or it was placed in the wrong place. If it were not to save yourself, this powerful Vice Admiral would probably not die here, right? A crowd of military academies couldn't help but flash such thoughts in their minds. Then, deep self-blame and guilt quickly filled their hearts. Like a jack, it pressed their hearts firmly. You have actually done a good job. Zephyr raised his hand to dry the moisture in his eye sockets, then smiled and comforted Roy and the others. The cadets were dumbfounded and looked at Zephyr subconsciously. The latter's face was a gentle and free smile. This is justice. You are still young, maybe you still don't understand. But the old man believes that you will understand one day. This is the idea, and will that those damned pirates will never understand for a lifetime. They would never understand why a strong person would die for the weak. They simply don't understand why people in high positions should protect the weak and small civilians. They only know how to plunder, and think they are powerful but inferior. In fact, they are just a bunch of bullying garbage. He looked down at the Marine Vice Admiral who died laughing and continued softly. He practiced his inner justice and completed the task perfectly. He is a great soldier. The old man is very proud to teach such students. You don't have to blame yourself too much, because this was originally an obligation to be a soldier. But Teacher Zephyr, Ghost Spider suddenly raised his head and asked blankly. Is he worth it? Just to save our group of weak little ghosts? Zephyr smiled. Smile freely and cheerfully. Worth. Justice is not asking whether it's worth it or not. The old man has persisted like this for so many years, but he has never dared to be careless. Is it worth it for the powerful Marine to sacrifice his life to protect civilians? Why does this need to be questioned? It's not worth it or not, it needs to ask your heart. Hina asked with red eyes. What about you? Teacher Zephyr. Why do you stick to it? Zephyr raised his hand and rubbed Hina's head, and said gently. Because the old man knows the purpose of his life in this life. Because the civilians need me, because the Marines need me, because justice needs me. They may not know what I did, just as other people in this world don't know how many Marines died here in this war. They won't know, and the old man doesn't need them to know. The old man just needs to know that they are protected by the old man. Just as you are protected by him. That's enough. Mole hesitated for a moment, and asked in a deep voice. But Teacher Zephyr, aren't you afraid of death? Zephyr couldn't help laughing. A man who died in order to carry out his beliefs is also handsome. Death in the battlefield was originally the greatest romance of soldiers. The voice fell, everyone was moved instantly. Come slowly, kids, I believe you more than anyone else. You are the future of justice, Zephyr solemnly said. Then, he slowly turned around, his eyes rekindled endless fighting spirit, and he looked towards the civilian area in the distance. In a turbulent civilian area, the screams of countless civilians came from a distance amid the continuous explosions. There, a huge steel giant is destroying everything around him unscrupulously. Douglas Bullet, that guy was thrown directly into the civilian area by Golden Lion. Zephyr gritted his teeth, then turned back to the cadet's door. Next, find a place to hide, but before he finished speaking, he was stunned. Because he saw a pair of firm, warlike immature eyes. Ms. Zephyr, we didn't plan to hide. Ghost Spider shook his head. Yes, we are also Marine. Hu Shaoshan resolutely said. Mole also smiled and said, maybe we are still weak now, but monsters have the way monsters fight, and we also have the direction of our efforts. He couldn't help looking at Roy. The last sentence is from on the meaning of effort. No matter what kind of war, people can play a role. Even if we are far behind the monsters like Akainu, Kizaru, and Aokiji. They can attack the frontal battlefield unscrupulously, fight with the real powerhouses of the flying pirate group, and bloom the glory that countless people admire and admire. But we can also participate in this war in other ways. No matter how decadent the old man is, he once had absurd dreams of freedom. No matter how humble and weak the knight is, he will long for one day to be able to protect the girl from the homeland with a white horse and silver spear, and then die heroically. No matter how timid and weak, the soldier would imagine wearing a war flag, charging into battle, and standing at the forefront of the border. This is what these military academies share in their hearts. Thinking about it this way, all the military academies looked at Roy involuntarily. Have you decided? Have you decided? Zephyr suddenly noticed their eyes and sighed secretly in his heart. Before you know it, this group of immature and young little ghosts has also grown up completely. The vicissitudes of war completely wiped out their childishness and innocence, and replaced them with the perseverance and courage of a real soldier. What surprised him even more was that when they made such a decision unanimously, their attention was subconsciously placed on Roy. Roy, has he gradually become their leader? Yes, we have decided, Teacher Zephyr. In any case, we all want to go to war. Blindly staying back, at least we can't do this. For justice. The cadets looked at Zephyr in front of him with very solemn expressions, their expressions free and easy. Zephyr finally turned his gaze to Roy, who had been silent. Roy, what do you think? Roy slowly raised his head, and a brazen smile was drawn at the corner of his mouth. I want to go to the main battlefield, he said solemnly. Zephyr was taken aback, his face changed slightly. Main battlefield? Is this kid crazy? There is the fiercest battle between the flying pirates and naval headquarters. The degree of danger is not comparable to that of the military academy's battles. No. Although your current strength is quite good, you have even reached the level of a general officer in your head, but you without Master Haki, that stage is still too early for you. Zephyr scolded harshly. He has high expectations for Roy, and he also agrees with Roy's resolute fighting spirit. But this time their opponent is the flying pirates who cross New World. The biggest war that Marine has ever faced. He definitely does not allow Roy to risk such a big risk to go desperately. Facing Zephyr's severe opposition, Roy smiled more wanton. Ms. Zephyr, I know your kindness, but you have your worries, and I have my decision. At least, Roy looked down at the Uncle Vice Admiral lying in a pool of blood, trembled in his heart, and quickly turned his gaze to the front battlefield of Marineford in the distance. The horizon over there, countless smoke of gunpowder shrouded the sky, as if covering the sky from the sun. I could vaguely see a golden figure of evil spirits, grinning. The legendary big pirate, Golden Lion Shaki. Roy gritted his teeth. I can't just let that guy mess around like this. Zephyr was stunned by Roy's voice. Just when he wanted to continue to stop him, he couldn't say a word. Because I suddenly remembered that I was so bold and fearless when I was young, and I could even be called life and death. If Roy is not even dare to set foot on that battlefield because of the strength of the Golden Lion today, he will probably retreat when he faces a truly powerful opponent in the future. Zephyr knew there was no way to persuade him. It's okay for you to go to the main battlefield, but you have to promise the old man a condition. You must not provoke the Golden Lion guy, you must survive. He said solemnly, with an unprecedented dignified tone. Roy smiled and nodded. Without saying much, his figure turned into an azure light and rushed towards the main battlefield. Then Teacher Zephyr, we will go too, unexpectedly next. The ghost spiders and other freshmen are all in unison, and the figure has stepped up to keep up with Roy. Zephyr was suddenly stunned. Where are you bastards going? He growled. At this time, the voices of the freshmen came from afar. Mr. Zephyr, we will go wherever Roy goes. Yes, don't worry, we will survive. We trust him. Zephyr froze in place, staring blankly at the back of his group of students rushing to the battlefield. His eye sockets became moist again. Where Roy goes, do you go where? Roy, you brat. You really have you. Boom. A ray of blue light whizzed across the earth, tearing the earth apart, a huge dent that was tens of meters long. Countless pirates pounced like a black tide, but they were blown out in an instant. Roy appeared on the ground with a pale face, panting slightly. Layers of blue airwaves surround his body, leaping one after another, like a real flame. After breathing, he did not stay for too long, but continued to calmly watch the direction of the main battlefield to kill. He is extremely fast, every time it beats and flickers. All have a shaved teleport speed. With the violent power and speed blessing, the lower-level pirates of the Flying Pirate Group didn't even see a single face. They were completely bombarded by Roy with a punch or kick. No mercy. Zephyr's perception is not wrong. After opening the fourth gate of the 8 inner gates, Roy's combat power has reached the level of a naval headquarters general officer without any suspense. But what he didn't know was, Roy, who is really fighting, even if he is facing a vice admiral level master, he barely has the power to fight. Because 8 inner gates was originally used for desperate tactics. That kind of power to develop the body to its limit, that kind of fierce and violent aesthetics, is simply not what ordinary people can imagine. Hockey, yes, only those who have mastered hockey can truly suppress Roy. Rumble. The earth is neighing. Roy is like a meat grinder walking on the ground, harvesting the lives of pirates at an extremely efficient and terrifying speed. His expression was very calm, but there was bottomless anger suppressed in his eyes. The dead bodies of pirates were everywhere. Blood and fire spread across the earth. Roy's speed is too fast. We can't keep up. No, even if we keep up, maybe we can't help him too much. The freshmen far behind Roy smiled bitterly at each other. They looked at the emptied piece of land and piled up with pirate corpses, and they felt a sense of sourness in their hearts. Roy's strength has surpassed them too much. Come this way. They have never encountered any decent battles at all. The pirates who were originally distributed on this road were all easily killed by Roy. Are you sure that Roy's talent is really inferior to ours? The ghost spider suddenly smiled bitterly, and raised his hand to wipe the blood on the corner of his mouth. In the battle at the military academy just now, many of them were already injured. Smoker bit his cigar and shook his head. Who knows? But when you work hard to that extent, talent may not be that important anymore, right? Everyone couldn't help but shook their heads and smiled bitterly, but there was not the slightest jealousy or malice in their eyes. Roy's dedication, his self-discipline and hard work, anyone can see it, and see it clearly. They pay that they are far from Roy's level, and they are not qualified to be jealous of him. The sound of burning mountain urn is authentic. I can't control that much, we definitely can't leave him alone. After hearing the words, everyone nodded. Yes. Just as Roy didn't abandon them at the beginning of the war, it is impossible for them to abandon Roy now. The emotions in the army are often very simple and pure. They are already comrades in arms fighting side by side. So they continued to set off, their eyes firm. At the same time, They all couldn't help but the same idea came up in their hearts. Wherever that man goes, they have to keep up. Can't keep up? Then desperately keep up. This is not just referring to this war, even the future is included. Otherwise, the gap between himself and him, it will become more and more distant. The blood was like rain, splashing suddenly. Roy's figure stopped suddenly, and a dazzling bloodline overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He staggered, then gritted his teeth and stood firm again. Your body is almost reaching its limit. The voice of the system suddenly sounded in my mind. Roy smiled disapprovingly, and raised his hand to wipe the blood from his mouth. I thought you were scared by this war, and dare not come out. The system was silent for a moment, then slowly said. Originally I was planning to give you mandatory tasks, but I didn't expect your performance to be far better than I expected. It seems to be brewing a suitable vocabulary. Be ruthless. After a second, it uttered these two words. Is it tougher than you think? Roy couldn't help laughing. Emotions, in your impression, I am really an incorrigible coward. He laughed at himself. System. I just never met someone like you. With your past character, facing this war, you should shrink back. So I originally planned to give you a mandatory mission. But now. He did not go on. For a system that can easily read Roy's heart, it knows more about Roy's past and what kind of person it is. Being able to sit will never stand, and being able to lie will never sit. This is the portrayal of Roy in the past. For such a person who eats and waits to die, let alone let him spare his life in the war to fight, I am afraid that simply participating in the war will also have his life. Otherwise, the system will not try everything when it just crosses, and even force Roy to take over Roy's body to force him to discipline him. But now, seeing Roy's so calm and even inexplicable look in his eyes, the system couldn't figure out the logic behind it. Have you never seen someone like me? At this time, Roy, who was extremely heavy and calm, was keenly aware of the weirdness in the system's voice, and asked with a frown. So, you mean, have you ever owned another host more than once? Faced with this question, it took a while for the system to give its answer. Yes, before you, I had 22 hosts in total. This Poseidon. Roy cursed secretly in his heart, but he didn't have the time to quarrel with the system. 22 hosts. So what will happen to them later? He asked. System. They all gave up. Roy was taken aback and asked subconsciously. Give up? Still have this option? At this time, a picture similar to a dialogue box suddenly appeared in Roy's mind. The final choice of the self-discipline system. Did you actively choose to give up this system? Reminder. Once you choose to give up this system, you will be erased from all the memories of this system, you will be unbound and connected with this system, and you will no longer need to continue to follow the self-discipline task of this system. Seeing this system message prompt, Roy almost immediately exploded on the spot. The corners of his mouth twitched frantically, and he almost wanted to greet the 18th generation of the ancestor of this damn system. Your uncle, why didn't you say it earlier? With this final decision, Lousy needs to be so angry. Why don't you tell me? The system's voice still seemed calm, but it seemed to tremble a little. You didn't ask. Moreover, you never give up every time you were about to fail, and you were about to be unable to bear it. Every time, yes, every time, you gritted your teeth and persisted. Roy was completely drunk now. He tickled his teeth with anger. But at this moment, the system suddenly asked him such a question. Do you regret it now? Roy froze. Regret? Now you want to quit. If you want to give up, it's still too late. As long as you choose that, okay, I will completely disappear in your world. You no longer need to be as self-disciplined as before and work so hard. The system slowly said. Roy couldn't help being silent. Regret? Suddenly, his eyes turned into a trance, and scenes from the time he traveled involuntarily appeared in his mind. Sweating like rain under the sun, sweating in the wee hours. Reading at night under the candlelight, every time I clenched my teeth. Every exhaustion, he looked down at his rough hands, the palms that were originally immature were already covered with rough calluses. He suddenly laughed and sighed softly. To be honest, I don't regret it. If it weren't for you, I guess I would never know. It turns out I can do this to the extent. Maybe, before I knew it, I gradually fell in love with this life of self-discipline, hard work and hard work. I have never felt so real that I am alive. This thought flashed through Roy's mind. System Road. That's why I said that I have existed for countless years, spent countless years, and even witnessed the emergence of countless young people, but I have never seen someone like you. The change is so big before and after. In the end, it can perfectly adapt to the rhythm of this system, and even the mandatory tasks that should have appeared in this war are no longer needed. Roy smiled. He doesn't know this. He slowly supported his body and stood up, looking at the surroundings. There was still not a long and definitely not short distance from the main battlefield, but even at such a distance, he could clearly feel the horrible movement from the war over there. There were still pirates rushing towards him not far away, but they were just the outer and bottom members of the flying pirate group. Those truly powerful pirates are all in the center of the battlefield, fighting against Marine's masters. Not enough. I don't even have the qualifications to enter that battlefield. Roy murmured, his eyes suddenly becoming firm. He let out a low, violent shout. With this violent drink, Roy suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. He bent down suddenly, vomiting blood one by one. You are too impatient. With your current state, it is too early to hit the 5th gate, Domain, in the 8 inner gates. The system prompt sounded like thunder in the brain, and the wave shook Roy's mind violently, and even felt dizzy. But Roy grinned recklessly, his white teeth were already flushed with blood. Are you worried about me? The system paused. I'm just a system, and I don't have any emotions, let alone the emotion of worry. It's just that you are the only host in my long years who did not choose that give up option, so I don't recommend you to squeeze your body's potential so desperately. Roy twitched at the corner of his mouth. At this time, the pirates who had been full of surprises not far away noticed Roy's strangeness, thinking that this damn Marine kid could not hold it anymore, raised the weapon in his hand and surrounded Roy with a grinning smile. Die. Marine kid. Like you, who is so dumbfounded, lousy didn't know how many killed in New World. Ha 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 ha. The pirates swarmed quickly. But when they rushed to Roy, the weapons in their hands could not be wielded anymore. Because they saw a pair of scary eyes that looked like a devil. The hideous bloodshots are all over it, and the eyeballs are slightly raised. The oozing feeling is like being stared at by a monster crawling out of the sea of blood in the Corpse Mountain. They had never seen such a terrifying look in their lives. A biting chill came out from their feet like lion majesty, and went all the way down their spine into their brains. Then the figure of the Marine kid had disappeared in front of them. Boom. Only heard a dull sound. The pirates turned their heads in horror, and suddenly took a breath. The pirate who rushed forward, behind him. The figure of the Marine imp did not know when it had already appeared there. But this is not the most terrible, the most creepy thing in their hearts is. The chest of that pirate, one hand, a bloody hand, came out from his chest. 5 fingers are pinching a fresh heart that is still beating slightly. The hot blood evaporated from the seemingly fragile hand, then slid to the ground, converging into a pool of crippled blood. Devil, madman, this Marine is a devil. Ah! All the pirates who saw this scene uttered unstoppable screams in horror, and their footsteps retreated uncontrollably. His face was pale. In their tightly constricted pupils, they saw that Marine boy uttered a hoarse roar like a beast, and then suddenly crushed the heart in his hand and drew his arm outright. Huh! A rain of blood in the sky swayed along with the pull of the arm, and dots of blood red fluttered in the void, staining the boy's face red. After doing all this, the Marine boy vomited another mouthful of blood. Get out of here, he sneered and raised his head. After a very short, strange and dead silence. Run. This is a lunatic. The pirates were so scared that they threw down their weapons and squirmed their heads. No matter how fierce they are nothing more than a group of pirates who have not received strict military training, and they have no organization and discipline at all. Their only goal in life is to stay at the feet of the big men and pray to them like beggars. Then use the names of the big names to bully people who are weaker than them. Faced with such bullies, as long as you are more ruthless than them, they will completely lose their will to fight. Roy watched the group of pirates fled madly all the way, did not chase, just stood where they were, bent over and gasped. He could clearly feel the pain everywhere on his body like a knife cut, and the meridians that flowed energy in his body were on the verge of breaking and collapse. But the aura released by his body was rising frantically at an incomparably astonishing speed. He is attacking the 5th gate of the 8 inner gates. At this time, the system made a deeper and faster sound. Don't be too anxious, your body won't be able to hold it this way. Roy grinned. It's okay, I have a sense of measure. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the main battlefield in the distance. His eyes were firmly locked on the golden figure in the sky. Golden Lion. He ran out again. The earth shattered layer by layer directly under his terrifying power, setting off a huge wave of dust. At this moment, in Roy's mind, there is only one screen. The Marine Vice Admiral who died in a pool of blood in front of him. Naval Headquarters Marineford. Frontal Military Port. The main battlefield. The turbulent pirates were crushed in black, and from a distance, they looked like a thick black city wall, leaning towards Marine. The roar of artillery, bitter wind, the sky of gunpowder and the flames of war. The clash of sharp swords buzzed. Everything that comes into view shows the cruelty of this war. The corpses were everywhere, and the grey stone brick ground was sprinkled with dark red blood. Gia ha ha ha. Kill all for lousy. Today is the time for Naval Headquarters Marineford to sink into the sea and become history. High in the sky, a terrifying and rebellious figure had a grinning smile at the corners of its mouth, and let out unscrupulous laughter. Long golden hair like a lion was flying freely in the wind, with empty feet, and the position below the knees seemed to be cut alive by some kind of sharp weapon, and two famous knives with sharp edges were attached. The legendary big pirate, Golden Lion Shiki. Kill. Long live Captain Golden Lion. Ha 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 ha. Capture Naval Headquarters. Kill all the Marines here. When the pirates heard the Golden Lion's order, their eyes were bursting with bloody red brutal light. The corpses under their feet seemed to stimulate the desire to destroy everything in their hearts, and they went to the Marine more rampantly. They have never thought about it in their entire lives. As a pirate destined to be hunted and wanted by Marine, there is even a chance to enter the Holy Land of Justice Naval Headquarters. As long as this war is victorious, they will be the most powerful pirate regiment in history. The fame of all of them will spread throughout the sea. Their prestige will shock the whole world. Damn Golden Lion. Does this lunatic really think they can capture Naval Headquarters? On the main battlefield, Sengoku, the Marine Admiral Buddha, who was firmly surrounded by a group of Marine high-level officials, cursed inwardly, his teeth crackling. Even though he said that, his eyes were full of inevitable dignity when he looked at the Golden Lion. 2 years ago, just after Roger was arrested by Marine, Golden Lion, the big pirate who had fought Roger to death and alive, went beyond everyone's expectations. Even the fleet under his command was too late to convene and broke into Naval Headquarters Marineford single-handedly. The battle that year was almost dim, the sun and the moon were dark, and the shocking power of the legendary great pirate, the Golden Lion, was completely revealed in front of the entire world. One person, two swords. Like a furious and crazy lion, it almost destroyed most of Marineford. If it weren't for the last two Marine bosses, Sengoku and Garp, to pull down and shoot at the same time, it is estimated that no one can stop the crazy Golden Lion. Although in that war, Naval Headquarters successfully arrested the Golden Lion and sent it to the 6th floor of eternal hell in the impelled-down deep-sea prison for permanent imprisonment, but Marine also paid an extremely heavy and tragic price. But when everyone was relieved, one day 2 years later, Impelled Down came out with amazing news that the Flying Admiral, Golden Lion Shiki successfully escaped from prison. The Golden Lion guy actually endured the boundless pain and saw his feet tied up by the seastone shackles alive. Finally, with his devil fruit ability, he successfully broke through the Impelled Down, which is known as the Bronze Wall and Iron Wall prison. And this time his return, to a certain extent, means that this will be a disaster for Marine. It's not easy. After the guy squatted in jail, Golden Lion became a lot smarter. He is not as impulsive as he was in the past, but is commanding his pirate fleet to fight a large-scale war with us. Next to Sengoku, Garp shook his head and frowned. While talking, his gaze swept across the battlefield quickly, but in an instant he had a panoramic view of the situation on the battlefield. Marine, the most powerful military armed organization in the world today, faced the offensive of the Flying Pirate Group, unexpectedly fell into a disadvantage. Garp would be unbelievable if he hadn't seen this with his own eyes. Regardless of high-end combat power, but in the middle and low-level combat power, as well as the sophistication of weapons, and the understanding of tactics and cooperation, Marine, who has a strong military literacy, is undoubtedly much stronger than the pirates. But the scene in front of him forcibly subverted the opinions of all Marine executives present. The vitality coverage at the beginning put us under a lot of damage and psychological pressure. Golden Lion played pretty well in this hand. Especially the division of troops to invade and destroy civilian areas has distracted many Marines from our side. At this time, Akainu, who was wearing a military cap and a cloak of justice, looked somber and authentic not far away. Hearing this, everyone secretly felt that it was tricky. Akainu was right. The Golden Lion's hand in the Marineford civilian area was played quite loudly. Naval Headquarters Marineford is divided into 3 core areas. One is the living area provided for life on the island, inhabited by a large number of civilians and military family members. One is the political core area, including the marshal's mansion and various administrative clerical offices. The last one is the military area stationed at the periphery of the living area and the political area, which mainly includes a large number of elite marines, countless military fleets, military fortresses and fort buildings in the station. At the very beginning, Golden Lion split a part of its troops, using its Lion Fruit's ability to drop troops into civilian areas, and launched a frenzied destruction and invasion. In addition, the fleet's artillery and ground-washing bombing was carried out at high altitude. In this way, he was able to achieve the arduous goal of destroying Marine's heart with very few casualties. To know, in particular, the invasion of civilian areas will inevitably greatly disrupt the Marine's mind and will to fight. There are many families of Marine living in civilian areas. They are ordinary people who are unarmed and have not received any military training at all. How can they face the maddening destruction and killing of pirates? And in my mind, my family and friends in the civilian area are likely to be attacked by pirates. How could Marine in the frontal battlefield have the strongest fighting will? The most terrifying thing is, this move of Golden Lion doesn't even need to divide a lot of troops. Even a pirate of hundreds of people is enough to upset the order in the civilian area of Marine and hit his military strategic goal. Sengoku twisted his eyebrows tightly, suddenly turned his head and asked Momoshage beside him. Gion, how is the situation in the military academy and civilian areas now? Momoshage Shen Sheng Kaido. Sengoku Admiral, the latest information, Zephyr Teacher has successfully put down the invading pirates from the military academy, and solved the 3 squad captains of the flying pirates. But because of Douglas Bullett's slaughter in the civilian area, Teacher Zephyr was unable to free up his hands to support our frontal battlefield. Instead, he rushed to the civilian area to stop the violent bullet. Sengoku was silent for a moment. Zephyr, can't you help it after all? This time, Golden Lion, the bastard dared to attack the military academy that you value most. He wasn't too surprised that Zephyr was able to kill the squad captain of the flying pirates in such a short period of time. The purple-haired old bastard was stubborn and crazy, and Sengoku was a little scared. But this is also good, at least if Zephyr went to support the civilian areas, he could also stop the bullet guy. Since Teacher Zephyr took the shot himself, the civilian area is probably safe. At this time, Aokiji pulled the blindfold and said, his tone was full of admiration for Zephyr. But at this moment, the Golden Lion's laughter came from far away from the sky. What's the matter, Sengoku, you seem to be quite at a loss. Jia ha ha ha. Could it be that you, known as the resourceful general, finally have nothing to do with it? If this is the case, let me take the action myself and end this war as soon as possible. The voice hasn't completely fallen yet. With a sudden wave of Golden Lion's left foot, it kicked out at an astonishing speed that the naked eye could not capture. Huh. Laugh. The sound of the air being torn apart by sharp weapons roared. The darkness between heaven and earth seems to disappear suddenly at this moment. A shining roaring sword slash, turning into a golden arc, it neighed toward the podium where Sengoku was. Slash wave. Golden Lion Shiki, the legendary big pirate, is not only famous for his difficult devil fruit, but his swordsmanship is also unparalleled in the world. What a hard-mouthed bastard. Shiki, don't forget how you lost to this place 2 years ago. Sengoku's eyes immediately caught a touch of anger, and the figure suddenly burst out with a bright buzzing golden light. Covered by the mighty golden light, his figure swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye, but instantly turned into a huge war Buddha. Zone you demons everyone fruit big Buddha form. The great Buddha shocks. Sengoku, in the form of a golden Buddha, raised his palm and blasted a palm toward the void in front of him. Boom. After the dull air blasted, the golden vast shock wave slammed into that arc-shaped slash fiercely, sending out a terrifying explosion like the earth in the earth. Boom. An astonishing air wave roared from the center of the explosion and spread out in all directions. The surrounding buildings and land were all set off under this shocking airwave. In the endless wind and waves, a touch of golden light flew into the sky suddenly. It's terrible. Golden Lion Shiki. The slow and sluggish sound of beating gradually spread in the golden light. D. As the lazy beating sound fell, countless golden photons in the midair quickly converged into a human form. A tall figure wearing a yellow and white striped suit appeared. It was Kizaru wearing toad sunglasses. It's Paluzolino Vice Admiral, he actually did it. Seeing Kizaru's shot, there was a burst of cheers from the marine camp, and the morale skyrocketed a lot in vain. Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru, the recognized monsters among the three Marines, have many loyal fans in the military because of their unique charms. Well, if Kizaru, who looks like a crooked melon, is also attractive. Kizaru rubbed his beard with one hand, half-lifted one hand, and pointed his index finger at the golden lion. That kind of weird beeping sound also became more and more obvious and richer with this action, like Shinigami is knocking the countdown to death. Suddenly the dots of golden photons finally converged to ultimate, a stunning and dazzling beam, bursting out from Kizaru's index finger, and howled towards the golden lion. A golden beam of light with terrible penetrating power and terrifying high temperature, but instantly hit the golden lion, as if to swallow his whole person. Jihahaha. You yellow-skinned monkey kid, didn't you eat enough for the lessons back then? The cold light flashed in golden lion's eyes, and the figure suddenly flickered in the air. In the horrified eyes of countless people, Kizaru's beam attack was easily avoided. Next moment, his figure has appeared ghostly on Kizaru's head, and one of the famous knives with weird sharp waves wrapped around his feet suddenly pierced the air and fell towards Kizaru. The cold light flashed under Kizaru's sunglasses. What? He made such a puzzled sound, and drew out a golden giant sword out of thin air with one hand. Sky Kong Yunjian. Kang. The two swords cried in midair, making a sharp buzzing sound of shattering people's eardrums. A long string of sparks suddenly splashed at the intersection of the two swords. It's really terrifying speed. I didn't expect that you, who broke your legs, still have such strength. Kizaru murmured playfully with a smile, but in the depths of his eyes under his sunglasses, a touch of solemnity flashed through. 2 years ago, the Golden Lion single-handedly invaded Marineford, he also shot himself. But back then, his strength hadn't reached the admiral level of combat power, and he was almost cut in half by Golden Lion's sword. If it weren't for Sparkling Fruit's ability to be strong enough, he would have at least one arm missing now. But what he didn't expect was, 2 years have passed. He finally stepped into the threshold of this peak, and his combat power rose to the highest level ever. And logically speaking, Golden Lion had nothing to eat or drink in the deep-sea prison in the past 2 years, and even lost his feet. His combat power should have fallen drastically long ago. But this scene clearly shows another fact. This guy is still terribly strong. Don't be kidding the yellow-skinned kid. You're still far away. Change your teacher, Zephyr, the purple-haired bastard, to come in person, it's almost the same. Didn't Zephyr tell you? Are your swordsmanship and physical skills really messed up compared to your fancy devil fruit abilities? Golden Lion grinned, and shocking waves of air suddenly broke out under his feet. Boom. Kizaru's figure turned into a golden light and flew out, shooting straight through a towering military fort in the distance. Damn it. Sengoku gritted his teeth. Perusalino's strength is naturally very strong, but compared to the veteran peak powerhouse like Golden Lion, there is still a distance. Gia ha ha ha. Let's go on together. Lousy wants to see. What qualifications does your marine have to stop me, Golden Lion? The Golden Lion growled and grinned unscrupulously. Yes, this time is different. He is no longer the reckless, impulsive Golden Lion. He is no longer alone. In his hand, the master holds the largest pirate fleet in this sea. He is very familiar with Marineford's combat power distribution and military area. This time, he is going to completely destroy this place. Wash away the shame I have endured over the years. Bring it on. Sengoku. Garp. Let Lousy come and see what you have made in the past 2 years. The Golden Lion roared, both legs swinging a sword at the same time. Then most of Marineford's frontal battlefield, including the sea within a few kilometers, there was horrible throbbing that made the scalp numb. The expressions of Sengoku and Garp changed drastically, and a shocking horror image suddenly appeared in their minds. That trick. Die. A azure ray of light whizzed past the edge of the main battlefield like a phantom, blasting out dozens of pirates. Next moment, Roy's figure appeared on the ground, his eyes filled with boundless anger, his eyes staring scarletly at the grinning golden figure in the sky, and subconsciously clenched his fist. That is Golden Lion Shiki. Surrounded by Marines and Marines fighting fiercely, the snow-white seagull flag and the black pirate flag are intertwined in midair, and everything that comes into view is extremely cruel. He finally came to the main battlefield. At a distance of less than 10 kilometers, he killed hundreds of pirates and his eyes were red. But just when Roy had just gotten his feet, countless pirates around trying to surround him. Suddenly, there was a terrifying vibration on the ground under his feet. Rumble. Rumble. those waves of shaking became more and more obvious, as if people couldn't stand firm. In Roy's sight, the ground beneath his feet rose layer by layer, and the bottomless cracks spread quickly. The black crack spread all the way from the far end of the military port to the foot, magnifying wildly at an astonishing speed visible to the naked eye. Snapped. Boom. There was a loud noise of cracking and collapse of the earth, shaking people all over. The whole world in front of me seemed to be turned upside down at this moment, with rocks and soil rising from the ground layer by layer, like second steps, layered up into the air. And the surrounding military fortresses, steel turrets and even offshore warships are all crazily distorted and collapsed under the control of some strange invisible force, turning into countless fragments and rising. Not just everything on the earth, even the seawater within a few kilometers of the coastal waters turned into huge roaring waves that soared into the sky. The huge amount of seawater and everything rising from the earth slowly rose to the back of Golden Lion, hovering in the high air as if frozen. To obscure the sky and the sun, the huge number almost completely obscures the light of the entire sky. Gia ha ha ha. Come on, naval headquarters, today this so-called holy land in your mouth is about to sink into the sea. Golden Lion opened his arms to the sky and smirked, and the fire of ambition was burning in his jealous eyes. Everything will be destroyed by Lousy. Next moment. He waved his hand. Roar. Between the heaven and the earth, the roar of a lion seemed to suddenly explode the waves. Next moment, the fragments in the sky and the huge amount of seawater were summoned by their master, and they quickly gathered into a great lion several hundred meters high, opening its blood basin and screaming wildly. Lion Majesty. Govern place earth coiling. With a wave of the Golden Lion's hand, the lion covering the sky suddenly blasted into the center of the battlefield. All Marines stared at this terrifying lion with dull and frozen faces, and there was an infinite fear in their hearts. This is simply not a force that humans can fight against. As coming. One of the strongest Paramecia Devil Fruit abilities. Lion Fruit. Is going to show off. Quickly find a cover. Separate the formation. Sengoku roared wildly with an incomparable expression on his face. In the face of such a large-scale attack, even if he has extremely strong combat power, he cannot keep Marine in the field. At this moment, a figure suddenly jumped from behind Sengoku. He actually slammed into the roaring huge lion like a sharp blue and white arrow. Ice Age. The indifferent and lazy voice slowly spread on the battlefield. Immediately after everything in front of me seemed to be frozen in the void. The snow-white frost, entrained in the extremely cold air, completely froze the lion that fell from the top of the head in midair in an instant. Many Marines were dumbfounded and staring at the snow-white, motionless lion for the rest of their lives, and fell to the ground uncontrollably. Good job. Sengoku hurriedly cheered. Golden Lion frowned, but saw a tall and thin figure slowly appearing on top of the frozen lion's head, exhaling a frosty breath with indifferent expression. It's so dangerous. He looked down at the huge lion at his feet that was frozen by himself, thinking that if the scale of the lion made by Golden Lion was a little larger, it would still be choking if he wanted to be completely frozen with his own ability. This time period, whether it is Akainu, Aokiji or Kizaru, the development of their own devil fruit abilities, or the development of physical skills Haki, are far inferior to the later generations of the war. They are still quite young, but I didn't wait for Aokiji to relax. A figure entwined with azure waves of air actually rushed from the distance of the battlefield 3. His speed is almost ultimate, but it took a few seconds to get on top of the ice lion's head. Then suddenly stepped on the lion's head. The terrifying power actually smashed the frozen lion to pieces. Next moment, among the ice crystals in the sky, a young figure, waving its fists, blasted towards the stunned Golden Lion. Who is that kid? His speed is so fast. Even faster than the shaving of Marine 6 styles. How could it be possible at this age? And many more. He is not wearing Marine's formal uniform, he is wearing a training suit from the Marine Academy. That's a student from Marine Academy. How can this be? Seeing that in the sky full of ice crystal rain, the bloody figure of the young man shook his fist towards the culprit of this war, the legendary great pirate Golden Lion. Everyone present was shocked and stunned. The most shocking thing is, he was also wearing a dilapidated military school uniform that was soaked in dark red blood. This also means that he is a freshman in a military school. But this is not in line with common sense at all. The military academy is a key area of civilian areas bombed and invaded by the flying pirates. It stands to reason that it has already fallen. Even if they succeeded in breaking out with the reinforcements of the headquarters, it was impossible to cross the long front and reach the main battlefield so quickly. The most important is, freshmen in military academy. Where is it possible to have such a powerful combat power? But this scene that actually happened before now completely subverted the three views of everyone present. Roy, come back soon. You are not that guy's opponent. The Marines here were still immersed in the shock caused by Roy's exit, and they couldn't recover. On the other side of the podium where Sengoku Admiral was, there was an urgent and extremely worried female voice. Everyone turned their heads in a daze and looked around. Beside Sengoku Admiral, Vice Admiral Momoshagi of the head office was exclaiming with a pale face. Roy. The Marines were stunned when they heard the name, and a picture flashed through their minds. Why does this name sound familiar? At this moment, suddenly someone in the Marine crowd erupted in a low voice. It's him. That self-disciplined Roy. The author of that article, he is a direct disciple of Zephyr Admiral. It turned out to be him. The Marines reacted immediately, but they couldn't help but squeeze a sweat for Roy secretly in their hearts. Is it really possible for him to be Golden Lion's opponent? The picture flickered. Next moment, Roy's fist wrapped in a spiral blue airwave suddenly came to Golden Lion's face, and quickly enlarged in the latter's pupils. Gia ha ha ha. I don't know how high the earth is, Marine kid. You didn't even graduate from the military academy, so you came to die recklessly? The cold light flashed in Golden Lion's eyes, and he grinned. It is no longer practical for him to use his sword at such a close distance. After all, his two swords are installed on the broken foot, which is far inferior to the flexibility of swinging the sword with his hand. He shook his figure lightly, and smiled and threw a punch at Roy. Boom. The two fists collided violently in the high air, making a deafening noise. Circle after circle of white airwaves spread out in all directions with the center point where the two fists collided, and the agitation made the air rippling visible to the naked eye. Aokiji, who was slowly landing, saw a flash of surprise on his face during this scene. Hockey? There was also a burst of cold air from the Marine podium. Is that hockey? That light blue wave of air? How can he withstand Golden Lion's hockey shock? Sengoku and others couldn't help but have such deep doubts in their hearts. No, that's not hockey. Momoshagi shook his head worriedly. That's the power that Roy gained through some extreme method to overdraw the body's potential and break through the limits of the body. Under the blessing of that energy, his physical strength and speed will be greatly improved, even reaching the original level of several times or tens of times. Everyone trembled upon hearing this. They are really unimaginable. What kind of heaven-defying cultivation method is it possible to use and overdraw the body's potential to such an extent? But when they saw Roy's skin almost bursting, full of strangely red, and even the blood vessels in his face were clearly visible, they all shook their heads unanimously. That feeling, it must be very painful. What kind of will did he use to withstand the pain of breaking through the limits of his body forcibly? But they changed their minds again. The words and sentences of on the meaning of effort appeared in my mind, and I couldn't help sighing deeply and sighing with emotion. Once the rumor had you, now, finally saw you with my own eyes. The image of the hard, and desperate figure in the article in my mind. After all, with the young man in front of him who bravely punched the Golden Lion. Gradually coincide. Sengoku gritted his teeth, his eyes reddened. Zephyr, is this the student you selected? It looks so much like you. This kid. Garp next to Sengoku shook his head and said with a wry smile, his tone full of emotion. Looking at Roy in front of him, he couldn't help but think of the boy who kicked the bomb on the school field that day. I want to run too, but I'm a soldier, it seems that you are not allowed to escape. Facing his own doubts, this little guy answered to himself like this. Is Roy weak? At his age and his identity as a military academy, he is not weak at all. Is Roy strong? With his current combat power, let alone Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru, even when the three of them were in the military academy at the same time, Roy is far inferior. But the scene before him has a shock that is completely different from Kizaru's shot and Aokiji's frozen. It was a shock that came from the depths of the soul, a shock that was enough to ignite the blood of anyone's heart. He knew he was weaker than anyone else, and he could not be the opponent of the legendary big pirate, Golden Lion. Especially after Paluzolino and Kuzan's two shots, it is estimated that no one in Marine can make people as amazing as the two of them. But he still shot. Facing the Golden Lion, who was far stronger than himself, with a tragic injury on his body, he was wearing a broken and bloodied military uniform. Resolutely shot. This kind of courage and perseverance goes far beyond Kizaru and Aokiji. The real strong is not the strength of strength, but the mentality and will. If you surrender to power, you will be a man in vain. When Garp was deeply moved, the collision of the two fists in the sky was finally divided into victory and defeat in an instant. Boom. Only heard a blast like a dull thunder. Roy let out a low muffled grunt. A crisp fracture sounded from the swinging arm, and then the whole person flew upside down like a cannonball. It turned into a blue phantom and sank into the earth at a terrifying speed. Boom. The dilapidated ground seemed to be shook slightly by Roy's body, and the dust was dancing. Gia ha ha ha. You kid is kind of funny, you have developed some kind of weird energy. However, with your current strength, it's still far away. After Golden Lion blasted Roy with a punch, crimson flashed in his wild and crazy eyes, and one of his feet kicked out a golden slash without hesitation. He is a pirate, and he doesn't care about the backward and naive concepts and ideas of relying on the strong to bully the weak. After 2 years of imprisonment where life is not as good as death, Golden Lion has completely turned into a lunatic that is worse than anyone else. He can even saw his feet without hesitation. How could he care about such a meaningless reputation? The current Golden Lion just wants to return to Marine thousands of times the pain he has endured in the past 2 years. Destroy everything about Marine. Since this kid is a pro student of Zephyr, and looking at the expressions of other people, it seems that he is highly valued and expected, so just kill him directly. At that time, it is estimated that everyone's expressions will be quite exciting. Golden Lion thought so gloomily. The terrifying slash that was enough to cut through the sea for thousands of meters, quickly whizzed down towards the location of Roy's landing. It seems that the brave Marine boy will be completely smashed into pieces. Huh. Just at this critical moment, a tall figure suddenly flickered and appeared in that position, and the golden famous knife clanged out of its sheath, dragging a ray of beauty like disillusionment in the void. Roar. It was like the dragon sword aura that almost tore apart most of the military academy that day. The dark green sword light rose from the ground and slammed into the slash that the Golden Lion kicked. Boom. In the eclipsing sword energy storm of heaven and earth, Momosagi's beautiful figure stepped out. The wind blows her narrow eyes half squinted, and the marine cape with pink epaulets is hunting and hunting, looking from a distance like an unyielding and cold female god of war. There was boundless anger in her eyes. Golden Lion Shiki, it's too embarrassing to shoot a military academy. Golden Lion snorted. When you Marine took an army of thousands of people to hunt down a pirate group of dozens of people, you never considered such a thing. This kid dared to shoot at me, he must have a mortal consciousness. This is a battlefield. Without enough strength, you can only become cannon fodder. Isn't this the truth in the world? Momosagi gritted her teeth when she heard the words, but when she was about to make another move, she was stunned. A hoarse and low voice sounded slowly behind her. Momosagi Vice Admiral, get out of the way. In an instant, Golden Lion was stunned. Everyone was stunned, eyes full of incredible. A shaky blood-colored figure stood up again in the billowing gun smoke and dust. He even wanted to continue fighting. Is he crazy? The wind and waves whizzed past my ears. With every breath, there is a strong smell of gunpowder and rust that seeps into the throat. That is blood. The internal organs have been injured. Roy knows his physical condition better than anyone. The picture in front of me seems to have gradually become blurred, and I don't know if it is because of the blood stained the eyes, or because of the sand and dust. He doesn't know anymore. There is only one picture in his mind. The Marine Vice Admiral who died tragically in front of him in order to save himself. He doesn't know him either. But this does not prevent him from working hard for him. This does not prevent him from working hard for him now. I can't manage that much, Roy now. There are only 2 words in my mind: revenge. How can there be so many reasons and why the relationship between men and men? He could lay down his life for Roy. Why can't Roy lay down his life for him? Roy stood up again with difficulty. Every wound on his body, every muscle, even every cell and meridian, gave him a tearing pain. He thought he could no longer stand up, but when he stood up again, he found that his body seemed to have become a lot easier all of a sudden. Roy was taken aback for a moment, and then couldn't help twitching the corners of his mouth, as if laughing. Yes, this feeling is really very familiar. Too familiar. Even the heroic and miserable war in front of him gave him an unreal illusion. The countless extreme trainings that I have endured and supported in the past. Isn't it just for such a critical moment? Can you make it by yourself? This is something that should have been taken for granted for a long time. He clenched his fist. Although he has been fractured, this kind of skin trauma will not significantly affect his combat effectiveness. Isn't it just pain? I've long been used to that kind of stuff. You still want to fight? The system's voice rang in my mind abruptly, accompanied by waves of weird buzzing. Your current injury, don't say anything else, even if it is to cultivate as much as possible and receive the best treatment, you have to lie down in the hospital for at least a week before you can recover. Roy smiled disapprovingly. It's okay, I feel it's almost there, and it's almost soon. The system paused hesitantly. Almost. Are you sure? Among my previous hosts, there are also many people who practice the 8 inner gates, modified. According to their experience, they have hit the limits of 8 inner gates one after another, and the difficulty will be extremely terrifying. You have just succeeded in breaking through and liberating to the 4th gate not long ago. You should also be able to feel the opening of the 5th gate. How difficult is it? Roy was taken aback, and was silent for a moment. He knew that the system was not wrong. As a practitioner of 8 inner gates, he can clearly see the flow of energy in the major acupoints in the meridian in his consciousness. 8 inner gates 5th gate, Doman, is a truly reborn door in 8 inner gates that has truly stepped into the pervert realm. When he was on the battlefield of the military academy, and when he was on the way to the main battlefield, he wanted to try to open the huge gate more than once. But no matter how he tried his best to spur the energy in his body to attack that door was still immovable, and it was desperately strong. However, just now, at the moment of a blow to Golden Lion, under the pressure and impact of death, in his mind, there was a dull sound from the acupuncture points of Doman, suddenly. Roy didn't know if it was her own illusion, but anyway. He wants to give it a try, anyway, he wants to fight. At least, without leaving any regrets, he tried to avenge the Vice Admiral man who died in front of him. Even if it hurts a little fur of Golden Lion. Even if you use teeth to buckle a little bit of flesh and blood on Golden Lion's body. He can accept it. What he cannot accept is, I am indifferent in this situation, because the enemy is stronger than himself. Just give up the inner persistence. His conscience is overwhelming, it's that simple. There must be something I can do, even if the chance is slim, I want to try it. You still want to fight? Are you going to die? The strong wind blew away the smoke, and a beautiful face of sullenness came into view. Momoshagi gritted his silver teeth and said viciously towards Roy. With the fall of Momosagi's words, it seemed that the entire chaotic battlefield had become silent in such a moment. All Marines couldn't help but look at this long-admired Marine boy, quietly waiting for his answer. Even the Golden Lion in the sky is holding an interesting state of mind, looking down at Roy with playful eyes, and a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Countless eyes stared. Roy laughed. He took a step slowly. This step. Firm. Sure, without hesitation. There is no retreat. Well, because he killed my comrade in arms. He killed my comrade in arms. It was such a simple sentence, such a plain 7 words, but all the Marines present were immediately blushing. They may not have personally witnessed the tragic battle of the military academy. But they can imagine Roy's mood at this time. Why are they not angry? On the battlefield. As a soldier, what you can rely on, only your comrades in arms. Only those who have experienced the cruelty of war can truly understand the value of life. Only those who have faced death in person can have the will to move forward. The feeling that the closest person dies in front of you, and you are powerless, is really too aggrieved. Yes, his comrade in arms died in the hands of the flying pirates. And the leader of the flying pirates, right in front of his eyes. He risked his life. Abruptly, he went all the way from the military academy to fight all the way by himself. Why not let him continue to fight? There are countless Marines on the battlefield with red eyes, clenching their teeth, and clenching their weapons tightly. Momoshagi was taken aback. A touch of distress and softness flashed in the depths of his eyes, but he stiffened his neck and said coldly. This is not the current war that you can participate in, and that man is not even the enemy you can fight against now. If you rushed up like this recklessly, you are undoubtedly dying. As Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, I have the right to order you to retreat and go to civilian areas to support. Boom. At this moment, a thunderous roar suddenly exploded between the clouds that were darkened by gunpowder smoke. The ink-like clouds moved slowly, shining with thunder. Pitch and patter the sky. I don't know when it started to rain coldly. The Lion Majesty of the Golden Lion just now rolled up a large amount of seawater, and under the scorching fire of artillery and war, thick water vapor accumulated in the clouds. At this moment, ultimate is finally brewing. The icy rain and the cold wind slapped on his cheeks, causing Roy to frown and narrow his eyes. He quietly looked at Momosagi, who Ishin stopped him in front of him, and suddenly grinned. Momosagi Vice Admiral, I don't accept this order. He doesn't understand what is just and unjust. At this moment, it is too early to speak of the belief in justice. But, the middle-aged uncle, who had fallen motionless in a pool of blood, actually gave himself only one life. He may not have too much talent to surprise the world. But he used his words and deeds to perfectly interpret the qualities and fearlessness that a good soldier should have. Roy has never felt such emotions before, the past him. No one will die for him in a lifetime, selfish, he will never die for others in his life. But now, he just wanted to be impulsive and reckless. For nothing else, just want to breathe out. Excuse me, please get out, Momosagi Vice Admiral. You can shoot with me, but you can't stop me from doing it. Roy's slightly rickety body due to a serious injury gradually stood up straight, and his eyes met Momosagi in front of him coldly, his figure as straight as an unyielding battle flag. That guy died to protect himself, the culprit is in sight. Do you want me not to shoot? Roy can't do it, and can't afford to lose that person. In the wind and rain, his voice became hoarse, but his tone became firmer. He clenched his fist very tight, the light blue airwave on his body surging again, like a blazing flame. He took another step, keep pressing. With cold and murderous eyes, he stared at the sneer golden lion in the sky. The muscles of the legs are slowly tightening like steel, ready to go. At this time, just when Roy was about to attack again, two burly figures suddenly appeared beside Roy at the same time, each holding Roy's shoulders with his hands, holding him alive. Enough, kid, you have done well enough. Garp on Roy's left side. You are still young, there is no need to die here. Sengoku on the right said solemnly. Roy was taken aback, turned his head, and looked at Garp with a calm and almost terrifying look. Done well enough? So it's not enough. He looked again, he didn't need to die there. Roy pointed to the battlefield filled with smoke and corpses. There is no marine here, it is necessary to die here. Sengoku gritted his teeth and said, since your comrade in arms died for you, then you have to survive well. Why? Roy suddenly said bluntly and interrupted Sengoku directly. Just because I am a direct disciple of Zephyr? Just because I am a military academy, I must be protected? My life is important, but his life is not. His eyes were bloodshot. My life is important, but his life is not. Roy's hoarse voice was not loud, but it thunderously blasted in every Marine's mind on the battlefield. Yes, maybe the Marine who went to support the headquarters was to complete the task of protecting the freshmen of the military academy, but before he was Marine. He is a person above all. A person of equal status just like everyone else. Like everyone else, he also has parents' pain. He is also the treasure in the eyes of parents, wives and children. Although it is a task, I paid my life for the justice in my heart. But isn't his life important? Garp Vice Admiral, Sengoku Admiral, Momosagi Vice Admiral. Roy smiled, the corners of his eyes wet with cold rain. In the red eyes, the rain continued to wash the blood in the corners of the eyes, slowly flowing down. It also washed out the blood on Roy's face more cleanly, revealing his young cheek with wounds remaining. Even though his body was bruised, even if he was out of breath, he still held his head high. I know I'm reckless and naive. I know this is an extremely stupid decision. I know this better than any of you. But I can't do it, just watch it quietly. Even if we Marines succeeded in winning this war and even arrested Golden Lion Shiki, I felt uncomfortable in my heart. Because, I will never forget that bloody smiling face. You are a student of Teacher Zephyr, you are a military academy, you are Marine's future, the hope of justice, so you can't die here, he told me like this. Roy took a deep breath, and the blue waves of air around him became clearer, richer, and surging, like flames rising into the sky. How can I be indifferent? He suddenly roared with red eyes. He is my comrade in arms. Yes, he is my comrade in arms. Maybe I don't know his name, even more ignorant of his past, his family and friends. But this does not mean anything. He is my comrade in arms. That's enough. As a traverser, in the past, Roy, perhaps looking at this strange pirate world, was fragmented. The people and things here seemed to be a big dream. When he saw the Vice Admiral guy with his own eyes, he smiled and said, "You can't die here," and then fell down. Everything in front of me, the world in front of me, seemed to become clear. This is not an illusory game, people here. It's not an NPC made up of virtual data, they are all flesh and blood, souls and thoughts. They are all living people. This is a real world. And I, Roy is part of this world. Everything that happens here is real. He gritted his teeth. Momoshiki was silent, with red eyes, her body trembling in the icy rain, and she could no longer say a word to stop Roy. All Marines were silent. Not far away, standing on a piece of frozen ground, Aokiji's eyes were dazed and slightly startled. He seemed to suddenly realize it in such a moment. Why does Teacher Zephyr value so much and look forward to Roy, a junior brother? Because of love. Does talent matter? Important, too important. Is self-discipline, hard work important? It is undoubtedly extremely important, but love. This is indeed something that is deeply imprinted and can be in the deepest part of the bone and soul. This kind of thing cannot be changed. He slowly raised his head. He glanced around the battlefield quickly and sighed deeply in his heart. He found out, in the presence, whether it's an ordinary Marine soldier or the mid to high-level officers of naval headquarters. Looking at Roy's eyes at this moment, all are full of some kind of fanaticism and worship. Aokiji can understand this look. He also had this look in the past. When looking at Teacher Zephyr and Garp Vice Admiral, it was a look that was willing to die generously for the other party, without any regrets. And as I boarded the position of Vice Admiral, and perhaps soon Admiral, this kind of passionate emotion has not appeared in my heart for a long time. Just like the devil fruit ability that he possesses, he completely isolates himself from the outside world with thick and extremely cold frost, and completely bury his heart in the endless cold. For everything around, there is no longer the persistence of the past. But now, seeing Roy's crumbling blood-stained figure, Aokiji suddenly had such a strange feeling. His heart seemed to warm up gradually. Roy, you are amazing. The old man understands. At this time, Garp slowly let go of his big hand holding Roy's shoulder, shook his head, but a gratified and generous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Gradually let go of his figure. He really couldn't find any reason to stop a soldier from working hard and desperately for his comrades in arms. Because of this, he will do the same if he is replaced. Roy looked at Sengoku last. The latter squeezed his brows tightly, his teeth clenched.